It's time to bring in on the Western Pizza guest hotline from TSN 1200 in Ottawa, Matt Kaunisviita. On Twitter, his handle is, and on social media, is Matty Vowels. One of the better Twitter handles I've seen ever. Matt, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. And how does one come up with a Matty Vowels as a social handle?
Well, first, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to join you. And that was, so I grew up, I was always called like Matty K, Vita sometimes, but early on in my radio career, I was filling in, producing an FM morning show, and the host looked at my name and was like, I don't want to have to worry about pronouncing this when I thank you. You got a lot of vowels in there. I'm going to call you Matty Vowels. And I was like, oh,
nice.
That's unique, and it fits. My last name has more vowels than it has consonants. It's not a super common thing, and so I've stuck with it. And the other good thing is I don't have to be like Matty Vowels 23. There's the one and only.
I had to send out a bunch of invites for my mother-in-law's 75th birthday party. It was a surprise party that happened last Saturday, but we've been planning it for months. And I am sending random emails to random first name, one initial, then the year they were born, like everything, at a lot of Hotmail addresses, still some Yahoo address. I didn't even know Yahoo email was still a thing in Canada, but apparently it is. Hey, so I get it. Nobody's stealing Matty Vowels. You're part of the Ottawa Redblacks radio crew. Now, last year, the Redblacks make the playoffs. And if there's one team that I think a lot of people kind of cheer for is Ottawa, to be better, to be good, to get better. They're always on the verge. Let's start with probably one of the nicest human beings in this country. He's the head coach of your football team in Bobby Dice. They've got the right guy. We know him from here in Saskatchewan. In your opinion, what makes Bob so good?
I think a big part of what makes Bob so great is he doesn't have a lot of ego. And like, you look at bringing in Rick Campbell to be the special teams coordinator. He's a guy that was the day one coach here in Ottawa, coached Ottawa to a Grey Cup, and I thought did a pretty good job out in BC. When they moved on from him, Rick Campbell could have taken some time off, and Bob Dice was like, that's a guy, a coach. I'm not worried about him taking my job from me. What I'm worried about is winning football games. And I think that's a big part of what makes Bob Dice so great. The other thing is the players love him. And you talk to any player who's ever played for Bob Dice, and they would run through a wall for that guy. And I think that's something that gets thrown around a lot in sports. And at first, there were, I don't know if questions about Bob Dice's abilities as a head coach, but we certainly took a lot of calls on the post-game show of fans who didn't think he was able to make the decisions in crunch time. And he made some mistakes, but the other thing is he learns from his mistakes and doesn't really make the same mistake twice. So I think you put all that together, and it's a really good indicator of why Bob Dice is the right guy to lead this team.
Tomorrow night, the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Ottawa Redblacks will kick off the CFL regular season at Mosaic Stadium. Matt Kaunisviita from TSN 1200 Ottawa is joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. It's year 2 of the Drew Brown era, Drew Brown experiment. What would you grade him in year 1? If we were going A through D, where do you fall on the Matt Brown or the Drew Brown?
I think I'd put him at a solid B. I think he started out the season really, really well. He suffered an injury, and Jeremiah Masoli came in when he sat out a game, and Masoli was great in the first quarter, great in the fourth quarter. There was a lot of not so great times in the middle of the game, but Masoli led the team to a win. It was his first game in a while. He's obviously, since coming over to Ottawa, had been just dealt brutal injury after brutal injury. And I think Drew Brown heard some footsteps there. And I think he rushed back, and he wasn't anywhere close to healthy. And his play really dropped off as a result. He couldn't plant. He was sailing passes or leaving them short, getting picked off. And it was tough for him for a stretch of games there where he's trying to play through. And he learned from it, and he spoke about it later in the season about how much it was a learning experience. And I think that he's absolutely poised for a big year, but it wasn't smooth sailing start to finish in year one. Again, I thought he started terrifically, and he ended pretty strong once he was able to get healthy. And you just hope that, like his coach, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. If he gets banged up again, he's got to make sure that he's healthy when he comes back.
The talent's there, you can see it. And when he did get a chance to play for the Bombers, and it was very limited, you could see with a bunch of weapons around him and in a good system, you'd be like, okay, I can see what the Bombers see in this guy. And I was great. Yeah, he started great, but then it just seemed to not get on track. Free agency, I would say that you guys got the prized possession. Ed Hervey maybe didn't care that you guys got a Gino Lewis, and all of that went down. We actually had Gino on the SportsCage. Barney, who's the host of the show, tracked him down one day. Looks like he was in his backyard somewhere, came on, and he just let her fly about that whole situation and how there was no calls, there was no anything. We'll get to that in a sec. When you saw that Gino Lewis was going to be an Ottawa Redblack, it's got to make a guy feel pretty good, right? That's a nice addition to the team.
Yeah, I mean, day to day, my job at the radio station, I produce the afternoon show. I do some on-site work at Ottawa Senators games. For years, I did on-site work behind the scenes in the visiting radio booths. So I've worked with Luke Mullender for years before moving behind the microphone. And I'm going to be honest with you, Maz, there wasn't a lot of times in my radio career where I was excited for CFL football in the offseason. When I heard about Gino Lewis, it was, okay, like, is it May yet? Is it June yet? Let's go. It was only one piece in what I agree with you. I heard you earlier saying you thought the Ottawa Redblacks won the offseason. The job that Sean Burke has done the past couple of off seasons has been really impressive. And we can get into the secondary a little bit later if you want, but you talk about the areas of weakness for this team. I think we're the running game. They started Braylon Addison, a receiver, at running back in the playoffs, and in the secondary, which got absolutely torched. And you look at the receiving core, and there's some good pieces, but they were missing just a little bit. I think Dominique Rhymes underwhelmed in his return to Ottawa last year, and the fact that they're able to go out and get Gino Lewis, and he should be able to really help them in the red zone as well, another area where this team has struggled. It was absolutely a grand slam signing, in my opinion. And I think that it was the first time that it's like, okay, we're in the offseason, but I cannot wait for the regular season to get here.
Has he been as advertised through camp and through preseason? Have you seen what good money can buy? Are you seeing what we've seen him make to be the top receiver in the league so far in a Red Blacks uniform?
I actually wasn't able to attend any of training camp. They were in Kingston, and so it was off site for us. But the interviews and talking to people who were around camp, absolutely. And we heard from him on our drive home show here in Ottawa this afternoon. And it's I caught him on the TSN preview with Kate Burness last night, and it's full value. And you talk to the other receivers in the room, and it's funny because you brought up Ed Hervey's comments, and he knows he knows that he's one of the best players in the league, but he doesn't seem like your typical wide receiver, stereotypical diva who cry. He wants to do things that receivers need to do. And when you add him into a room with Justin Hardy, who I think it epitomizes that quiet superstar at the CFL level. Sorry, Ed. I think that Gino's only going to improve this team. That all you have Khalil Pimpleton, who just was spectacular when he was healthy last year. Braylon Addison, mentioned him, a running back, but so versatile. I don't want to call it an embarrassment of riches, but when you look at the Ottawa receivers starting tomorrow, top to bottom, it's a pretty spectacular group.
We have Darian Durant on with us every Monday, and Darian talked about, and he loves Gino Lewis. He thought if the Riders could get a receiver like that, because not only does he pose a threat, it gives everybody else more room, because two people usually have to worry about that, which means somebody else is being left uncovered. Some of the other free agents, and we know them because they were part of Rider Nation, Peter Godber, who's not going to play tomorrow because of injury. You got Amari Henderson in the secondary, and a Darius Pickett, who I know, who came over from the Argos, and he was part of that championship team, but he got hurt. Do you feel that Red Black fans, because of that injury, haven't had a chance to see the best of a Darius Pickett?
I don't think so. I think they absolutely saw the best of him. And the season, there were two things that happened last year where the season sort of went off the rails for the Ottawa Redblacks. One was Drew Brown's injury that he tried to play through. And the other was a Darius Pickett. And that ruptured Achilles on, I think it was the first play from scrimmage, a non-contact injury. And the secondary, Ottawa had been without their starting corners to start the year, and the secondary had struggled forever, and there were all these question marks, and it held up until a Darius Pickett got hurt. And I don't think it was a coincidence that special teams went in the hole a little bit when Pick went down as well. And I believe he was still top 15 in special teams tackles at the end of the season, despite missing so much of the year. So I think Red Blacks fans did see the best of a Darius Pickett, and it was hammered home by how sour things went after he got hurt. And man, oh man, is it impressive. Like, less than 9 months ago, this guy ruptured his Achilles, and he's going to be ready for week one. It's just such a testament to him. I can only imagine the work that he's grinded through to get back and to be able to go. And he's ready to get the party started. The party starter, his nickname, and he was DJing practices, and he was bombing around with his little scooter because he was in the cast, but he was still around last season, DJing practices and on the sidelines for the playoffs. So he's dialed in, and I think going to be really important for a new look secondary that includes Amari Henderson, who looked great in his preseason appearance.
Tomorrow night when the Riders take on the Red Blacks, the Riders are going to have a brand new left tackle, CFL rookie Peyton Collins. And the guy opposite him is Lorenzo Malden, who was a good player. And then there was one game where he kind of went off against the Riders and really established himself as Lorenzo Malden. And it seemed that, and I don't know if you saw it, ever since then, it's almost like his game got elevated and it's never come back down. It was like, he's a force to be reckoned with, and you have to game plan against him. And he's just, to me, been on a trajectory of, they found a really good football player that's turned into a really good CFL defensive end.
And he's got one of the best stories in football as well. TSN's Dave Naylor did a terrific piece on him and his journey in discovering football that is just... the amount of foster homes he went through growing up, like it breaks your heart. And finding an outlet on the football field. And he talks about, being in a juvenile detention cell and just looking out this little window and deciding that that's not what he wanted his life to be. But you're bang on. He's so impactful. And when you look at the rest of the front four, and you have Bryce Carter on the other side, and he's a heck of a player. Mike Wakefield, Cleon Lang, and
there's Cleon Lang. There's a guy named Cleon Lang. You can't forget about him either.
It's just, and there's such, the team dynamic between them is that, like, Lorenzo Malden is as happy if anyone else on that line's getting home because he's getting double teamed. And the selflessness of these players on this team, if the secondary can gel, you look at the linebacking core with the return of Pickett, Jovan Santos Knox in the middle, and you got Frankie Griffin and Davion Taylor on the other side. Like, this front seven is legit, and the continuity is there as well. If the secondary can do their part, we could see something pretty special on defense here in Ottawa.
Matt Kaunisviita is joining us from TSN 1200 in Ottawa. He's part of the Ottawa Redblacks radio game day crew. So tell us tomorrow, because a lot around here, I mean, we went to the West Final. People are picking the Riders in the preseason to automatically be in the Grey Cup, just discounting what Winnipeg has done. What do we have to watch for tomorrow against this Ottawa team on offense and on defense? I picked that the Riders would win 23-16, and I think that Ottawa is better than maybe they show, and that there's more dog in the fight, or fight in the dog, than we're realizing. I think quietly Ottawa has built a really good football team, and it's just we don't get the exposure out here. In your mind, for Ottawa to win this game tomorrow, like what's going to happen on each side of the ball for that to happen?
It's funny because one of my big question marks going into the game, and I don't even know if I want to bring it up with you, is the O-line, because I know how hammered you guys are on the O-line with injuries. But you mentioned Peter Godber. He's not good to go. And Ottawa's backup center, Eric Starsala, is dealing with a head injury. And so Jacob Ruby, who's I think played a little bit of center, but primarily tackle and guard, and at this stage of his career, a really good depth guy, but he's going to be starting at center. And so I know he got reps at practice, and that helps, but when you're down to a third string at center, it's a little scary. And so the first team didn't look great on offense in the first week of the preseason. They were supposed to play about a quarter. They played almost the first half because there wasn't much rhythm there. And so I'm with you. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the defenses are going to be the stars tomorrow night. But man, if Ottawa can get a couple of explosive plays, and I'm excited to see a healthy Khalil Pimpleton from the drop, and like you talk about Geno Lewis, Justin Hardy, so reliable. But I think we're going to be in for a pretty close game and relatively low scoring, because I think it might take a week or two for the offense to find its rhythm.
You can't forget William Stanback running the football there. I mean, he's just good. Let's rewind to last season, when one of the most CFL-y finishes in CFL history happens. That crazy game, Ottawa Redblacks. I think that cost us, I think maybe that cost us home field advantage in the West Final. The game ended, but then it didn't end, and then the command center got involved, and then there was fans on the field and the fighting. You had to be as angry as we were in Rider Nation about how that game ended up. I don't care who you wanted to win or lose. That was just an awful way for a football game to end.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
There were so many things for us to talk about on the post-game show, and it was just dominated by how do you let that happen? Like, players were in the locker room taking their gear off, and no, game's actually not over. Let's go back out. It was, but it's part of the quirkiness that we learned to love with the CFL. But there was Ottawa fans, I think, reasonably so when you look at the numbers, are not a fan of the CFL Command Center. We've had a lot of Command Center issues. There's one game, I think, against the Montreal Alouettes, where AJ Jakubek, the voice of the Redblacks on TSN 1200, and his broadcast partner Jeff Avery was actually recovering from surgery, so Brad Sinopoli was in the booth with him. And there was a Command Center call that went against the Redblacks. And there were some fans who were overserved, who thought the broadcast booth was the command center. And they're calling the end of the game and having to tell these, no, we're the radio. We're not the command center. I have audio of Brad Sinopoli yelling at these fans. But it was just, anytime you see a game end 3 times, not ideal. Not ideal.
I think for a lot of people here in Rider Nation, because Andy Fantuz runs the command center and he was at one time Saskatchewan Rough Rider, a lot of us think, this guy included, Andy, cut us a break. You're a former rider. You know how important these wins are. Like, come on, man. Do you want everybody in the CFL on your side, or do you want Rider Nation on your side? Like, what's more important? But Andy's got to call it right down the middle. You'd mentioned the call-in show. You mentioned fans being overserved. And I'm not sure how colorful your call-in show is. It's one of the best parts of Canadian football. When we do our post-game show, some people maybe have had the odd one before dialing up. Or two. But this is almost where, because there is so much texting nowadays, that the brilliant caller volume, I think, sometimes diminishes because it's pretty easy to get your texts in. Sometimes, when you've got to, know what you're going to say, hopefully, and then actually get it out on the radio and not be like, can you turn your radio down? Can you turn your radio down? So to me, it's the beauty of it. I know. And you just do that. Okay.
You lived it.
Your Ottawa Senators make the playoffs. They push the Leafs to 6 games and all of that, and it goes away. Tonight's Stanley Cup final. We can wrap on this. Who do you think wins between the Oilers and the Panthers, and how long do you think it's going to take?
I picked the Oilers in 6. I wouldn't be shocked if they got it done in 5. They just feel like a team of destiny, and we know history has a tendency to repeat itself. And you look at Wayne Gretzky, his first Stanley Cup appearance in the Stanley Cup final against the New York Islanders. They lose, go back the next year against the same team, get it done. Sidney Crosby's first Stanley Cup final appearance against the Red Wings. They fall short, go back, rematch the next year, and get it done. And it just feels like it's almost too poetic. And I know Zach Hyman's really going to hurt the Oilers' chances, but the fact that it looks like Connor Brown's, like he said today, he's good to go tonight. It doesn't completely overcome it, but it softens the blow. I've been so impressed with the depth scoring for the Edmonton Oilers. They're so much more balanced. Yes, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are leading the way, but last year, Connor McDavid had 20 more points than anyone else in the playoffs. And I think he and Draisaitl are a point off, I think 27, 26. And they're just getting timely scoring. The goaltending scares me. But the Florida Panthers playing in a 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup final, that's a lot of hockey. It's a lot of hockey.
Yeah.
I think the break helps them a little bit, but just feels like there's something special with this Edmonton group. And I picked the LA Kings to beat them in round 1. I didn't believe. I thought losing the 2 players to offer sheets, they were going to be a little too thin, and they proved me wrong. And Stu Skinner is starting to write one of those storybook journeys where loses his job and then comes back in and has been full value. So I think the Oilers find a way, and I don't think the series goes as long as a lot of people are predicting.
I'm just excited to see your hometown hero, Brady Tkachuk, and how many beers he drinks throughout the game, because him and Walt are Taylor Swift. Plenty of crowd shots, so I'm going to go with Team Tkachuk on this one, just because nobody's given us a chance. Matt Kaunisviita from TSN 1200 in Ottawa, thank you for doing this. Good luck tomorrow night. Well, maybe not so much luck tomorrow night. Good luck at every other game of the regular season. Hopefully we can do this again throughout the year.
My
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
No.
My pleasure. Call me anytime.
On the Western Pizza.